Hello Nitro fans, Racing 393 and welcome to part 6 of my ACME Condor Nitro rebuild, which we rebuild this car or transition this car into a rally car. Essentially it is only the body shell that determines whether it's a rally car or not, but we are going to go through the rebuild process of this around about, I don't know, I mean, I think you can still buy them, maybe, I don't know, 2016 I think they sort of started, but this one's from about 2004, I don't know, 6 or 7, could be wrong, but you know, it's been around a while. Maybe not that long. That's quite a long span, isn't it? I mean, it comes in a ready-to-run form or kit form. Two different types of specification of engine will come with this one. We've just recently rebuilt and refurbished the .18. Is a 2-speed. And in part 6, the first part is a quick look at the shock absorbers, just to show the condition of just one of them, as it is before and after. I will then do the other 3 off camera, so they're done. Then, I'll be honest, it's a part of a rebuild process, so we'll do it step by step. We'll probably start with the engine, put that back onto the chassis with the centre shafts, and the sort of the middle, the 2-speed transmission, the bell cranks, and any kind of other mounting parts, so for servos, etc. And then we'll go for another part, which would be the front and rear suspension and diff configuration, shock absorbers, which these will then go on. And by then, we should have a almost rolling chassis. Need to get some other bits for it, actually. I haven't actually spent anything as such. We're talking probably under £20 or $30 at the moment on getting things ready. But there will be probably part 7 or 8 is when we can start thinking about getting the car fired up. So yeah, a couple of sort of videos to go yet, but in this video, as I said, shock absorbers. Now they come in various different styles, I've noticed on this, but these are quite a nice blue. They don't feel too bad. This is the squeezer vision, you have to take my word for it. They're quite stiff, but I don't know if you can see close up the shaft, and it is quite dirty. I'm just banging the dust off. Yeah, some dust and rubbish in there. It's not in too bad condition, but the shaft is pitted, so that will definitely have to be cleaned. And I think they're all like that, to be honest. Yes, the shafts are all pitted, which is a shame. It's probably one of the most important part of a shock absorber, apart from the oil and getting the bubbles out. It's that shaft, and if that's rusty, me just pushing it up and down is probably destroying the seal that's in there. So I think they're all the same length as well. Yeah, they're not handed, or they're not front or rear. They're just 4 shock absorbers, the same size, the same sort of size spring, weight, and they just go on any side of the car, which is good. Now, I don't know whether I'm going to limit the travel on these yet. At the end of the day, I will make them softer. So I might put some, not so quite so thick oil in there. But this would just be me showing you stripping it down and rebuilding it so you can see from start to finish. I'm not going to do like a step by step, it will take too long, but initially what we'll do here now is we'll get this stripped apart. I'll show you the oil, the bits and pieces, and the condition to see if there's anything. I mean, I don't know, maybe there is something that's worn or broke or split, I don't know, inside. So anyway, let's start this part 6 off with a nice messy job of stripping the shock absorbers down. So I just stripped the shock. I haven't actually took the oil out yet, so I'm going to show you as it goes in. You can probably see it. I'm just tip it out into this bowl. That's like never been changed. But be very careful here. Yeah. And the reason is because you can see this, the shaft now, it is absolutely pitted. So I need to take the end off here so I can get the shaft out. We'll have a look at the piston inside. I might even consider drilling those holes out. Yeah, I don't know yet. See how they are, because I want to make it nice and soft. So that, because it's, although it's a rally car, it isn't going to be used too much off-road. Okay, right, let's get this other bit further stripped, but you can see the oil, it's minging. But anyway, onwards and hopefully upwards. Shock absorber all apart, fairly standard. You can see, I'll show you a close up now of the shaft, and we'll show an after one as well. So you can see there it's terrible. So we've got to try and clean that up. It is one of those weird cheaper option shock absorber where you've got like a C-clip, which you might not see that because it's tiny, which goes onto a little groove. And this is a 4-hole piston that just slots on, and then it just screws on the end rather than a C-clip again at the end. So so you find that this, if that's the same, if that is the correct size outer diameter, when it goes on, the nut itself obscures a lot of the piston anyway. So I don't know quite what I should do there. I'm going to see how many holes in it actually. I think it's my eyes, or is it 4? Oh no, it's 2. Anyway, let's clean this up. Let's do the simple thing first, and I'll be back in a minute. All cleaned off, ready to be reinstalled. So I'm not going to drill these holes out. They're really small. They're really small pistons. If I go out any bigger, it's going to split them. I don't really want to do that. So we're going to reassemble. Tamiya soft damper oil, that'll be all right. And my go-to, I'll say O-ring. It's got shock absorber O-ring grease. Well, it hasn't really got, I don't know. It's got some, like a plastic bushing in there. Maybe that's got a bushing underneath it. I don't know, but I'm going to put some O-ring grease on there. Reassemble this now. You can see that how much cleaner that shaft is now. So I'm not going up and down in the shocks when it was rusty to deteriorate that sort of plastic bushing or seal. So with the other shock absorbers, I won't be squeezing them, even though I probably have. Right, let's reassemble. Okay, so I've assembled the shock most of the way. I've made a little bit of a oversight. So I've put O-ring grease on this shaft. Now I was assuming, and I thought I'd lost the part, there was something that went over that. Like normally you'd get like a cap with an O-ring on maybe, that would screw down onto that to create another seal. I've just checked the other shocks and there's nothing there. It's like an open, I don't know, you look, it's like an open place, it's like it's not finished, but I don't know. I put some O-ring grease sort of on the shaft down there because it is a lot smoother now. I mean, that's perfect for a shock absorber. But because the shock sits that way up in the car, and it'll be like that for like, you know, ever, is the oil going to leak out? I mean, it's definitely oil filled. There's oil in it. It's got a piston. It's just, I don't know. Apart from the fact that it does now work like a shock really well. I like that. So it's soft Tamiya oil and this O-ring grease, which isn't O-ring there. It's just like a plastic bushing. But anyway, I've never seen that before. So I'm just going to stick the other bits back on, you know, the cap in the shock. And there you have it. It's rebuilt. Nothing too spectacular, but feels really good. For Filovision, that feels really good. There's no noise, no air, nothing. We'll see about what happens at the bottom there. I mean, if oil leaked, then that shaft wouldn't have been rusty, would it? And there's oil that was already in the shock absorbent, and heaven knows how long that's been in there. So the platform I've put right up the top, I've just taken it a quarter of a turn away from it. It doesn't seize or anything staffed, but yeah, all good to go. So that's one shock. I've got another 3. So I'm going to crack on with that, and I'm going to be back when all the shocks are done. Well, that's 3 down, 1 to go. That's the 3 I've done, and that's the one I've got to do. So that one's got a little bit of noise on it. That's the spring rubbing on the body. So maybe this didn't look at it, maybe something slightly bent, I don't know. But they feel and look really good. That's the one that came off. That one hasn't been touched. I'll be honest, that's definitely smoother on these new ones. Apart from that one, I think that one is slightly bent. Yeah, I think that one is very slightly bent somehow. That one, you can see, he's got like all the rust and dirt on it. So it is only dirt. It's not the end of the world. The rust is very easy to get off. It's a very simple shock. So I'm going to crack on with that one, and I'll be back once that's completed. And we'll be on to the next stage of this part. What are we on now? Are we on part 6? I think we are. So starting the process of fitting it back together. It's done. So 4 shocks, cleaned, refurbished. Not a lot to do, but there's not a lot to do, to be honest. These are quite simple. Just a bit of cleaning, clean all the grit out, clean the shafts up, put some oil in, you know, so they all feel quite good. Let me just go squeezer vision. That's good. That's good. The other 2, oh, really slippery still. You hear that one? That's the spring rubbing on the body, and that one. So they might be slightly bent, or the spring's slightly out. Don't know. Anyway, they're all done. The shafts look pretty good. They're not perfect, but they definitely haven't got that pitted, rusty sort of left feel. And also, these are the springs. These are the shoes, sorry, that came out of the engine, and you can probably see. Just make it there the spring. Well, that I snapped one of them, but I've got a packet here, so there's 2 actually, 2 packets. So these are going to go onto these shoes. I'm also going to, not in this video, but I'm going to sort of clean this up a little bit for now and put them in the other engine. It is only single speed, the other engine. So, yeah, I don't know. It'll be a separate video just showing you how I do that. So, what's next? So, I think we're finally on to the bit now where we can start assembling the car back together. Now, the nuts and bolts and various bits and pieces were still rusty, especially the bits that were exposed. So there's still a tiny bit of cleaning to do. The front bell crank needs to be cleaned, the fuel tank. I think the drive shafts, as in the centre drive shafts. I've also got to consider they might need an O-ring in those drive shafts, the centre ones. They should have little O-rings in the axle drive shafts to stop them rattling. I haven't oiled them when they've gone back into the suspension mounts. But finally, let's get some bits out and start the reassembly process. This will be this won't all be done in this video because I don't have time to do it on the video, and I could spread it out, but then videos will be few and far between. I think it's happening. You know, the frequency of my videos is okay for me. Keeps the story going. I know lots of people can do like build videos in 10 minutes, and that, you know, I suppose going back to a comment I made in a previous video, entertaining is probably the most important part. Maybe watching somebody in 10 minutes of video editing time that you're going to watch build a complete kit is more appealing, other than a drawn out process. But this is more of I do like my more educational, detailed approach than a quick get it done sort of approach on video. It's still going to take the same amount of time in real life, isn't it? But it's what you see at the end product. And I suppose that's what editing's all about, isn't it? And yeah, maybe that'll change as time goes on. But for now, this is just a process of rebuilding and enjoying the sort of refurbishment of vintage RC. And in this case, it's a vintage Nitro. So anyway, let's get some bits back together. I'll get some stuff on the table and I'll be back and show you where we go from there. So the first part of the process is mating up the 2-speed gearbox part and the 2-speed pinion. This did have a 2-speed on it initially when I bought it, but it was broken. Swapping bits around, because there's a couple of bits which are still on the old engine, which might need to go on this engine. I don't know. It's a very, for some reason, it's a very tight fit. Yeah, I'm going to try it. I'm going to put it on. This is fixed. That's got dowels on it, so that fits into the chassis, and it just goes where it goes. The engine, however, goes on sliders, and it can only be moved this way. It's fixed on this part. It does mesh quite nicely. It's just whether or not I can get it where I need it on the chassis, and I won't know that until I put the bolts and start fixing it down. So because this is fixed, I'm going to put this down first, then I'm going to put this on, and then I'll come back and just show you what I've done. So that's done. There's a little bit of a mission. I had to change some things around again. I had to take the flywheel spacer off of the other engine because it was narrower to fit onto this engine, because it just wouldn't quite mesh with this. It would mesh okay, but the engine mount holes wouldn't be lined up. So you can see underneath these screws sort of go in, they slide back and forth. So yeah, it's not an easy case. I mean, I think some of these screws are knackered, so I might have to get some others. But it's in. It's not perfect, but they're in for now. I mean, might put some tape over them so I don't lose them if I use it. Not if I use it, when I use it, if I haven't got the screws by then. But it is in there. I had to move the throttle linkage, sort of butterfly linkage, sorry, because it was hitting things. I still might have to move it up a little bit, undo that sort of brass nut and just sort of move that in a bit further. As far as the mesh, it's not perfect, but it is in there. It's not. There's not too much resistance on there at all. There's not a lot of movement. I can't move this away anymore because it's fully at its extremities. So anyway, it was a little bit more involved than just putting it on. So as simple as things look when they're the same, when you try and convert things, it's never as straightforward as you'd like. But anyway, we're one step ahead. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attempt to put the front and rear suspension on with the centre drive shafts, and then then the shocks can go on, and then we can start mounting the exhaust. So I'm not sure how far I'm going to go yet in the video, but I'll get to a point that, you know, I think this chassis is twisted a little bit actually. Bit of a twist in it. I might have to untwist it. Anyway, let me move on. Let me do the front and rear suspension, and then the front and rear suspension's on. It's worth noting, I didn't notice this when I took it off, that the front prop shaft and the rear prop shaft, like on most, I guess, I just overlooked it, are different lengths. The back one is shorter than the front. I didn't know that, but thinking about it, a lot of four-wheel drive shaft driven buggies, they tend to be different lengths, but you know, something I didn't think of. So that's looking a lot better now. So that's the engine, the centre gearbox, and the front and rear suspension and diffs. Looks all right. Now the thing is, because there's a couple of aftermarket bits I've used which wasn't and haven't been used on this car, so that's where some of the problems lie, to be honest. So I think the next thing I'm going to do now to finish this video is I'm going to put the shock absorbers on. At least they're off and out of the way, and we can sort of get the car. It won't be on wheels because I've got some different hexes coming for this. Like I said at the beginning in episode 1, I think. I'm going to put some aluminium hexes on here anyway, so that's later on down the line. So I'm going to finish off with the shock absorbers, then I'll come back for an update on what will then be, I've lost where I am, part 6. Was this part 6? I'll come back, it doesn't really matter, I'm not going to mention it, but I'll go through the plans for the next episode. So, and there you have it. So front and rear suspension on, shocks. It looks really good now. It looks really awesome. The deciding factor was, will it work? Will it start? Will it run? It feels 100 times better than it did when I first had it. Suspension feels really pucker, really good. It's really nice and smooth. Works as suspension works. The back, I've put the shocks that make a little bit of noise because of, I don't know, maybe they're slightly bent or just more worn. Who knows? I put it on the back because I've got more weight on the back with the engine. What's the other thing now? Now there's quite a lot of adjustment on this, which is surprising for a buggy like this. Well, maybe it isn't, but what isn't a mainstream. Got lots of different settings here on the top of the shock and the bottom. So the more you can to the shock absorbers over, the softer the suspension is. So you can run harder springs if you lean them in. They've got them in the middle at the top, and its furthest extremities on the bottom. It does also you can alter the ride height, because these can also go up and down. So they come across, I think it's 3 holes, I think. Or they can go down, which will raise the ride height. So bearing in mind, as this series is, it's to rebuild this or refurbish it and transform it into a vintage rally car, and the only real aspect of that is possibly their wheels and tyres and a body shell with the right wheelbase. Yeah, really pleased with that. So what do you think? It's come out all right, isn't it? I think some of the paint is still coming off the head. I haven't fitted the exhaust fully on yet, and it hasn't been tied up on there. The 2-speed is back together. Again, it's not going to be a nitro that's going to be ragged and jumped and launched off things. It's just be used periodically. I mean, I didn't get to do much of my use on any of my cars this year. I just didn't have time. So I had lots of things going on, but this seems to be going in the right direction now. So it's almost, well, it's not almost done. It's far from it, in fact. The next episode, I can't remember the number. You just have to look. It'll be on my channel. We'll be putting the bell crank on, fuel tank, exhaust. I might fit one basic servo that I've already got for this, as in that came off it, just so that I can manually control the throttle. Put all the pipes on it. Yeah, and put it back together. I mean, hopefully at some point I'll have the hexes, the aluminum hex that can go on, and then we can fit. I mean, I've only got the standard wheels and tyres at the moment, so we can put those back on. It's not a big issue. And once it's all back together, which it isn't far off now, I'll be able to give it a far up. Yeah, so in the next episode, it'll be finishing off this chassis, getting it all back together, ready to fire up. So the video after that, providing it all goes according to plan, will be a fire up video. So that's well, 2 videos away. So what do you think? Has it come out all right? Would you have done what I've done? I mean, how do you feel it's looking at the moment? I mean, I quite like the fact that it literally is just a 4-wheel drive 1/10 2-speed nitro, reasonably old. It's not that old. It's not too super vintage. I've got a feeling, like I said, that these can still be purchased. Probably about £220, which is some in the region of $260 or $70. I don't know, but you can. But also, yeah, as I'm sort of changing what I'm talking about, you can see there's a bit of movement there. Now I have put an O-ring in the front there, and to get an O-ring in there, you've got to take all the front suspension off. So I think at the moment, it's not a massive issue. It's not going to come out by any stretch. Although that is fairly close there, that one. It may want one in the front, but anyway, I won't. I'm not going to bore you with that. I'll just do that off camera and tell you I've done it. Right, so that's the end of the episode. Give it a thumbs up, thumbs down. Follow the channel if you can. Hit that subscribe button. Notifications. It all helps. Viewership slowly going up. And it will be slow, and it is slow in my educational non-fun videos, as I've called them. Anyway, what do you think? Give me some feedback. I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you get this far into the video, and I'll see you for the next episode very soon. And bye for now.